why not share all the knowledge that I have, and hopefully create some connections on around this topic as well, to be able to share the tips and tricks back and forth with you. So this is a 3-part course, if one could say. Now we're in the part 1, and there's going to be like the more technical stuff a week from now, and then there's going to be the last one, which I don't know how is it going to work, but I hope that somebody will send me an ugly presentation, and we can together make it better and functioning presentation. So this is the whole structure. Hopefully you can join me next week as well, or you can recommend this to somebody who needs to have those Keynote skills, and they can join. Again, free of charge, and hopefully fun. I made this ugly looking visual agenda for today, for the hour and 15 minutes that we have together. So we're going to go through some presentation types. It's not scientific. It's just me and how I view all the presentations, and then some examples, and then diving into one of these threads and figuring out what are the key principles of that kind of presentations, of that style, and what can we adopt from those learnings to the other types of presentations. And then of course this summary. And at some point, hopefully we have time to discuss, and I want to hear what you think of all this and what's your view. So let's get cracking. Presentation types. These are like 3 distinctive types, but rarely you see them in a clear, defined form. They are typically mixed. How we do presentations, we mix all these styles to get to the result that we want. So, but I'm like I have created these characters to highlight these 3 different types of presentations. First is this text-based presentation, which is well, as you can see, it's mostly about text. Image-based presentations, where people use a lot of background images and a lot of emotional, typically very entertaining and emotional presentations. And then there are these graphics-based presentations, which are close to my heart. If I will give you some examples of these presentation styles. This text style, couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, I was at our summer house, and my sister was there as well, and she was preparing for to give a talk, and she was doing her PowerPoint there, and I was looking over her shoulder and wondering what she was doing, and she sent me this slide or 2 slides. I said to her, are those your presentation notes? Of course, jokingly, because I knew that this was the presentation. But for me, these look like presentation notes and not the actual presentation. But this is a style I recognize, and many people use this in many cases because they think they can't do anything else. But also for many people think that this is a good way of conveying information. Must be interesting stuff for the audience, but as a presentation, it's not that appealing. Then there's this other style, these images. The idea typically is to have these either soothing or active images, and then some text on top of that. And if if the keynote speaker is very good at what he or she does, these make sense. If I try to use these, I'm laughed at and ridiculed. But for example, using a slide like this, it elevates my keynote to the level of Al Gore, because I'm using his image. So we are there in the same package, me and Al Gore. And you might even see the most, the best keynote speakers, the people that have the biggest charisma, they can pull this off. They can use slides like this, but I couldn't, and I feel like they are waste of everybody's time. But if you are a good keynote speaker and you have that charisma to pull this off, of course you can do it. It's difficult. And sometimes you can try to mix. If the data you're showing, the content, the text you're showing is boring, you might want to spice it up with some emotional images. Sometimes it just doesn't work, like in this case. The content is what it is. But you see quite a lot of this as well. So the third one, which is as I said, it's closest to my heart, is this where we use graphics elements like maps in this case, or small images, and we make a journey out of it in this case. Or another example is highlighting the service strategy options. Saying like, this is the world, just pick and choose it. These are the options you have. Or of data roles. I don't know, maybe there could be more data roles, but these are the three that I found. And I made this illustration, and I think I'm going to use this a lot more in the future. And when using graphics, it doesn't have to be true. It can just illustrate something. Like in this case, these are just swirls, lines, arrows. And sometimes I use also these kinds of slides, but of course, when you cram so much stuff in one slide, you probably can have only like 2 or 3 slides in one talk, and the audience can't be that big. It needs to be more specific and targeted to a small audience where you can have a discussion on top of this content. So it's not really like for big stages but for work meetings and such. But this is also doable. Or you can have a very simple, which sort of tries to make sense of it all. Like in this case, you have now, then there's the dream somewhere, but you need to go there. How do you go there? And these are numbered, of course, 1, 2, and 3, to make it even more clearer. And the number 3 is lower, because if it would be on top of the arrow, then you would read it 1, 3, 2. So it needs to be down. Anyway, that's like more technique. But still, you can use these kinds of illustrations, graphics, to make people feel like it's very logical. It makes sense and it's simple. Or like this, Hoa has seen this about purpose. Like everything from these 5 elements goes to the purpose. And when you have something like this, when all the arrows go into one direction in the end, then the audience thinks that this is truth. Because there are no arrows going anywhere else. So this is easy to understand, and it must be true. Okay. Those are the styles. What's your favorite? How do you what do you use?
I would follow your preferences and go with a very visual, graphic oriented style as well.
Okay. What kind of an effects have you had or response?
Well, there's a level of freedom of interpretation, right? So you depict something in a rather specific way, but yet it is not very specific. You leave space for interpretation. So as you mentioned with the data example, this is not the only truth. That's not the single truth. It's an example on a very abstract way to depict and minimize and simplify very complex information to a level where it can be anticipated by the people that follow you.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of style that obviously is far away from being distracted by these large images of Al Gore or whoever, where there's lots of very concrete information delivered, but having this abstract level. So this is I favor that as well.
Yeah. Do you have some kind of a formal training for that?
Me personally?
Yeah.
No. I just read a lot of. I like reading books on visual graphics and information graphics. I mean, that's my. No, I don't have. I'm not a visual designer. Not at all.
Okay. Anybody else?
Sorry.
All right.
I think it depends on the content because, for example, I also like graphics when it comes to complex content which needs to be broken down. But for speeches where you want to like talk in an emotional way, I think pictures are the best way to showcase whatever you're feeling and whatever you want to talk about. So it depends on the content, right?
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Maybe there's even another style which I started to use a lot, which are illustrations. So, for example, illustrations of people or of situations, but which are drawn, like not real people, not real pictures. That also works. And then you can define your own style, like your own brand, if you reuse them to tell a story every time. But yeah, I find it hard. I love the graphics. I sometimes find it hard to place them in a way that it makes sense. So that it seems so effortless, but it's not. So yeah, you know this, Miikka. He always fixes my presentations.
Anybody else?
I'm not a designer, so I tend to, hello, Miikka. I tend to have to come up with the content for these presentations. So the strategy, distilling the essence, like the key messaging. So more from a comms background into finance.
Yeah.
And I love the graphics. I want them, but they're so hard to create. So with you there, Frederica, it's to getting to that essence. And then also I've never had the budget or maybe the access to designer who I can translate that with. So it's quite challenging to get that magic.
Yeah, it does take time. And one thing that I've noticed or experienced is that sometimes people ask me to help them with their presentations, or they have some idea that they want to have illustrated somehow, and I find that very difficult, and I don't do that like almost ever, because for me the visuals they are born with the idea, and if somebody comes with a ready idea saying that this is how it is, I might understand trying to visualize it that it doesn't work. It's a crappy idea because it doesn't translate into a seamless illustration or graphics. So I think it's good to start thinking visually early on in the process, like designing a presentation. I think it's not the right way to go is to write it first and then try to illustrate it. I think it's better to illustrate it first and then write stuff, like have a paper and draw how it would go.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So I have kind of two different schools of thought, and I don't know if they fit in here properly. I don't know how many of you have heard of Nancy Duarte. She's a great, she's written 3 books, you know, Illuminate, Resonate, and Slideology. And it's also a lot about presentation. She actually did Al Gore's first presentation for his TED Talk, so it's unique that Miikka mentioned that in there. And it's really about this, the hero's journey, but it's also about the simplicity, no text overload, and kind of this journey in the presentation process. So I really resonate with that. And then there's another German who's here in Hamburg who has a book, Co-Create, which is like visual graphics and illustrator type of thought, you know, these explainer type of videos, but also visually explaining the presentation, the story, the project, whatever you have. I struggle with that, and I'm probably one of the people that Miikka's talking about when he says, if people ask me to do this, he says the answer is no, because I've asked him 1,000 times, because I have these stories I want to tell, but it's so damn hard to get them into a very simplistic way of telling it. Almost has to, it's so hard, but those are 2 schools of thought that I've tried to use in my keynotes and presentations, and then I try to steal as much as I can from Miikka, because he's just the absolute pro at doing it in that process. But when I'm giving a presentation, he's at the workshop there, he always looks over and I see this smoke coming out of his ears, because he's so frustrated how complex mine are and how simple his is. And he's like, when are you going to finish? But anyway, so yeah, I was trying, that's why I took off, because I was trying to answer your question on, you know, that's how I'd want it to be. I want it to be slick and visual and have this flow of all the slides you just showed us. It's extremely difficult to get there.
Yeah, but you are very charismatic keynote speaker, so you can pull off anything. You don't even need slides.
It's all magic. It's all smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I have a question for you, Miikka.
Oh,
hey, Alex.
Hey, everyone. So this question is actually extremely like low level, because I understand the archetypes that you're saying, but as I'm trying to self-identify these archetypes with like the way I do it, I guess I'll give it in a very simple and like dumb example. I struggle a lot of times because, say I'm a car salesman, and within these archetypes, I want to, on one given slide, I want to sell you 3 different types of cars. And so I want you to see the cars, but I also need to write down what color they are, how many freaking gas miles they get, or whatever it is. Obviously, as a speaker, it's hard to remember that. So sometimes you put it in the slide for the audience, but also really, honestly, I do it notoriously. I put down notes on there for myself, and then I fool myself into thinking, oh, people will like to just have it there as a visual reminder. But in the end, this just turns out to be like a very ugly slide with a black background and 3 distinct pictures with like Arial 14 white writing underneath. And I'm wondering, like, how do you, because this is something we've all had to do. Like, obviously your entire slide can't be the beautiful graphics. Sometimes you need this kind of stuff. And so how do you fit that into your style, or how would you do it?
Well, the way I do my slides, it takes a lot of time, and making those slides, it's part of the thinking process, and I go through them over and over and over and over and over and over again. So I do remember the details that are connected to each slide, because I've done that, and I've spent the time with the slide. So when I'm looking at my own slides, I remember the story that I'm supposed to tell. I don't have to have the notes inside the slide. I don't have the notes anywhere. I might forget a lot of stuff, but I don't know if that helps.
That definitely helps, but that's just like the one part. What if you want to show them these 3 different concepts that are visual in a same area, and you want, let me say it this way, you want them to know the stats on these cars, right? Not, this is not for your memory now, but like you want to show that to them, and you don't want this to look absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, of course you can show them, but they don't remember those anyway. So
that's true.
Some tricks are you saying a trigger for your memory as well? The way you create the slides and the image, is it a trigger, not only because you've worked each slide over and over again and it's kind of engraved, but it's also a trigger for you to know, okay, now this is what I talk about.
Yeah, but yeah, and I think it's important to restrict the amount of presentations you do. So try to focus on the ones that matter. And for example, like a company presentation or a big sales presentation, you need to spend like the whole week crafting that. Once I counted the hours I spent with one sales presentation, and it was 40 hours, like just doing the presentation.
Wow.
But yeah, we didn't get the deal, but they said it was the best presentation they have ever seen.
That's all you need.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
The reason I showed you this book, Co-Create, by the German guy, is because, and this is what I forgot to mention, which ties in, is their visual illustrators, graphic designers that at the Bundestag, at the Merkel's and other TED Talks, they're the guys that you see on the side drawing on a whiteboard or on a thing as you're giving the talk. And I'm like, how in the fuck just put my talk into a visual graphic and illustration? I spent years or months trying to figure out, what to say and do, and here's these guys doing it. And so there's a skill, a craft, and art in that, which that's also what I'd like to kind of get into my slides, because that's also a way that I want the people who are watching the talk to have the same type of visual triggers to say, wow, that's what the talk was about, and here's the images that I see, and these visual, what do they call them, graphic illustrators, or that do it live, is just an amazing feat in and of itself. But I think it also ties into that presentation, because there's got to be some simple process to also glean that vital information out.
Yeah. Antoinette, you're looking this whole thing from a bit of a different perspective, I presume. What's your favorite type of slides, and how do you produce them? No? Okay. Let's look at more slides. Yay! Okay. I showed you these presentation style types and some examples. And I think what for example, as Frida said, that there is this one other type with these illustrations. I think it's there, but illustrations are so rare. Like how many of us can illustrate something, really, like draw something and use that on slides? I would say 0.5%. And then hiring an illustrator to do that, it's quite expensive, I would say. And using a stock illustrations, you don't have enough of those to work with. So I think that's a quite complicated field. Okay, this is I'm going to say it out loud. This is the key takeaway. I hope you only remember this one thing. And I am very cynical here, but I consider myself to be a realist. Like, what will people remember from your speech, from your slides? They will remember one fact, they will remember one story, and they will remember the mood, if you're lucky. They might not remember any of this, or just one fact. So let's go to this huge event. It's online or not, but you go there and you see per day maybe 10, 15 presentations. You meet 50 people, you chat with them, and in the evening you think, what do I remember from the day? You might remember the one presentation that was really, there was a good vibe. And yeah, that was a good point in that one presentation. What was the point in that presentation? I don't remember, but there was something there. So out of those 10, 15 presentations, you might remember like a couple of facts or some interesting story that you remember because you want to tell that to somebody. And you remember who was funny and who was struggling and something like this. But as a speaker, you load your presentations with tens of facts and at least 5 different stories, and you think of the mood and you cram all this stuff in, and people don't remember any of that, or they remember one fact, one story, one mood. So if we look at these different styles, let's say, what are the strong points with this? The text, it's at least people using it, they think it's very fact-based. It's good tool for driving the facts in. But I don't believe that, because if you have bullet points, you have like 40 bullet points in your presentation. What are people going to remember from that? Is it the one that you wanted them to remember, or is it just something random? I'm comparing this to let's say that you take a group of kids to the history of the Museum of Natural History. And you walk around for 2 hours, and after that you ask, what do you remember from this visit? And one says that there was a half-eaten ice cream in the trash, and one says that there was the crow was missing a leg, and somebody says that there was a funny smell. So people remember something, but they don't remember the stuff that you wanted them to remember. But if you would go there with these same kids and you would spend the 2 hours just around one dinosaur skeleton, I think it would be far more likely that they would remember something from that dinosaur. So that's why I'm saying that, like, this style is dangerous in a way that the illusion is that it's fact-driven, but people don't remember, or people don't remember the stuff that you want them to remember. This image-based storytelling, it's very strong on creating the mood. It's not so strong on highlighting the facts. But again, if you're using a variety of images, how do you control the mood? Do you know what they are feeling after the keynote speech? They might think that the speaker was excellent. They might have this idea that like he or she is an expert on this futuristic stuff, but they don't remember anything else than the mood, about the speaker, about how excited they felt after the talk. So but that's of course good if you are, let's say you're a professional speaker and you want to get new gigs. That's very valuable. I'm not saying that that's wrong, but it's more about selling yourself than the content, I would say. Graphics, at best, it's good at highlighting the facts. It's not very good at building the mood. But I wanna go deeper in this graphics focused line and see how can we take everything from this. How can we create the story, the facts, and the mood? How can we perfect this? And what are the key principles? And how can these learnings be adapted to other styles? So if we think that this is true, that people remember one fact, one story, one mood from every presentation, and to Alex's point, to have those specs of every car there, it's a waste of everybody's time, because they're not going to remember those. First thing is choose the facts you want them to remember. Be very clear, and don't have other facts. That's the best way to make sure that they remember the thing that you want them to remember. Not to have anything else. That doesn't mean that you can't have other content there, but it all needs to support the fact that you want them to remember. I will give you an example. This is from one content marketing thing a long time ago. Let's say, long story short, there's the customer's world and the company world. We can tell the story from like how close they are to each other and blah blah blah, and then we can come back to this again. And we say if you're creating content for the company, you need to talk about the stuff that is shared by the customers and the company. And now comes in the arrow. I always like the arrow because that makes it a story. First, you need to know their world, and then you need to understand what are the topics that you want to talk from your side. And then we can zoom in. We can, this is inbound strategy, like awareness, consideration, decision. And we can have all these facts. These are the specs of the car. But we don't expect them to remember this. This is only here to support the main image. We can go deeper. We can say that of course after this there's a process how to do this. Dum. You do all this and that, and you make it look like it's very complex. But then you can always come back to this and say, we can do this. First, you need to understand the customer's world, your world, and what's in the middle, and we need to talk about that. So everything that we have done here supports the one idea. And this is one key thing, as all the others, is to make it so simple that people can explain it forward. In that sense, stories are always strong because people remember the story, or they might have a variation of the story, but they can tell that forward to somebody else. But if you want to portray some facts, then you need to have it needs to be really simple. And you don't need any other shapes than these. You can tell whatever you want with these shapes. It's just combining them in the right order. Long time ago, I wrote this book, Melt. One key idea of this book was to illustrate the huge change that we are going through now in our daily lives and as societies. Portraying our world as this box. The basic form, everybody can draw this. Starting from that, dividing it in two and explaining that our world is divided into two worlds actually. There's the material world and there's the immaterial world. Simple still. The material is objects and actions, as the immaterial is emotions and competencies and knowledge and all this stuff that you can't touch. What are the defining qualities? It's governed by scarcity. You have only a certain number of stuff. But the material world is governed by abundance. It's abundant, so the box opens all of a sudden, and it becomes a story. And these two worlds are very different because the material can be controlled. The stuff that is still in the box, you can own that. But the stuff that is somewhere around the box, you can't own that. It's free. And this is the big jump that our whole society, our companies, us as individuals, our daily habits are changing because of this huge leap. That we are moving from material world to the immaterial world. But I'm getting carried away. But it's basically a story of a box. It's not that complicated. And I hope that after seeing this, you are able to understand and maybe tell that forward to somebody, this story. At least that's the way I try to design it, that it's so simple. It took me 5 years, but. And then to have this story in the presentation, it's about creating the natural flow. This is the sketch how I created this presentation. I started crafting with random ideas, like this is stuff that I want to have in there, and this needs to be there, and maybe this and that, and all this stuff, and small illustrations already there. And then I started thinking about how do I package them, what kind of a flow do I create from that. And I think it's very important to see the presentation and have a sense of the flow. I can't tell you what is like a perfect flow, because there are so many different styles of presenting. But you need to learn that like what is the best flow for you. But it's just not like putting slides after each other, but to have this flow and draw that. And then I think I'm not good at this, but it's important to make people part of the story. I asked you in the beginning or some time ago, like, do you identify yourself in these types? And after that, I've been hoping at least that it's more difficult, like in the online world, to sense how engaged you are. But I was hoping at least that after this, you would see these slides, like what can I really learn from these, and how does that affect my slides in the future? Other way is to look at that is if you have a startup pitch deck, you build that, these are the slides you might have, and then you present that starting with the big pain, talking to the investors. And if they don't share your idea of the pain, if they don't understand the same way as you do, then there's no point in going through the deck at all, because that's the key thing. If the pain is shared, then they will maybe want to invest if they believe that you can solve the pain. So that's like a clear example of how the audience must be part of the presentation. Otherwise, there's no point in presenting. For me, for the mood, it's that's my like a best trick, is to make really clear and simple presentations. So that way I can guarantee that people say in the end, like, whoa, that seemed simple, that was comfortable, that was uplifting or something, that was nice. Always when it's very clear and simple. And Frida and Mark, you recognize this stuff from Future IO Moonshots. I don't know which workshop this was, but offering this roadmap for the participants, for the audience, and making everything to be part of that package, to make people comfortable with it, and going step by step, slowly, and making sure that they know where we're going, and so on. And this is what I like always, and some people want to tell their stories and give their presentations in a way that they are like adventures. You never know what's going to happen. They are like, might be like rock stars, that it's a performance, and that's okay. That's just not my thing. I always try to give the audience a sense of control. And that means, for example, like I tell what's going to happen next. I try to be very clear with this, like to make people feel like they can lean back and enjoy the ride, but they still know how long this is going to take and where we are on the roadmap. So this is the key takeaway. This is like, I think if you start with this and you think, what is the fact that I want to share, and the only fact? What is the story that I want them to remember, and how do I want them to feel after the presentation? But if you have like super many moods inside your presentation, they will pick something up, not maybe the one that you wanted. If this graphics based style is not yours, then what can we do with the other styles? First of all, make the flow. Draw the slides. Visualize them before you or during the building process of your presentation. And preferably show the flow as well to the audience. And for those who are stuck with the text world, I always say that use these simple graphic elements to ration the content. Like, for example, this presentation that we're now looking at is, I think it's 101 slides. I try to have very little stuff on one slide and then move to the next. Like now we have like one new thing that you're looking at, and then comes the next one. And using these symbols like arrow up, arrow down, or plus, minus, to simplify that, to make at least some kind of categories if it's text-based. Whatever presentation, pick the facts and stick with it. Repetition, repeat, repeat, repeat. And look at the fact from different angles and maybe bring something surprising in the game, but also that needs to support your fact. Tell a story. For me, story means that there's an arrow. There's the bad, the current situation. It's not good. We're not happy with it. But there's the dream place somewhere, and there's an arrow, and then you can ask, should we go together? And everybody is on board, of course. Or we can say that previously it was bad. Now we're here, but there's still a long way to go, or something like that. But it's quite easy to tell the story. And highlight the key takeaway, always. Like, it's the most simple way of trying to emphasize, like, remember this. This is the key takeaway from this whole presentation. This is not the key takeaway. So to summarize what we've done, these presentation types, 3, text, images, and graphics. I showed you some examples, key principles from one line, and then how can we adapt that to the other ones. And this is the key takeaway from this presentation. If you load up your presentation with a lot of stuff, you will never know what the audience walks away with. But if you try to control that, then you're at least going into the right direction with your presentation. That's about it. Let's have a talk. But first, I want to highlight that next week I'm going to talk about more like in detail technical stuff, how to build the presentations, how to do the arc, how to copy paste, maybe not that simple stuff, but like a fast paced workshop or presentation about how to actually do the workshops, presentations. And then the last one is something I hope that somebody would send me a presentation that we could all fix together. Hopefully something ugly that really needs some work. If nobody sends me anything, then I'm not going to have that session. But anyway, that's me. Ghost. Go ahead, Mark.
I'm not sure if I have opinions, but
Okay.
I think it's absolutely fabulous. We just need to apply it. What I hear out of it the most is we need to stick the work into our own presentations, and that's how they will be so slick, is by, I got the main takeaways, but it's about, we know the story better than anybody else, and we need to put the work in to fine tune it and simplify it with those key points that you gave us. And that's just a lot of work and time. Nobody else can do our presentations for us because nobody else knows the content really.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is, by the way, totally against the way often organizations work, I think, where somebody comes up with the content, like Yvonne said, and then there's somebody who makes it nice. And you kind of said that's not possible. That's not the way you should do it. You should think of the flow and the graphics and everything already when you come up with the content. So it's not separable, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Cannot be separated. It is one creational work you do. Like
You can always put pearls and lipstick on a pig, but it's a pig anyway. So, but that's what I think the graphic design. Not always, of course, it becomes a beautiful pig, but it doesn't change the content. And I think that the power of graphic design is that it can bring so much more to the content. It can change the content. It can deliver the content so much better if the visual thinking is there from the get-go.
So Miikka, my question is, how do you get going on like thinking in visuals in the beginning? Because I struggle with having visuals in my mind when I think of a content, and I don't get that creative in order to draw visuals right in the beginning, you know?
Yeah, I think that the arrow is the most simple way.
Okay, great.
How would you use arrow? Like this is now a square, and it needs to be a triangle or something, and then there's an arrow, and then you add some text to that, and I think that there's a story there. And then you can tell, like, now we're here, and this is like these are the qualities of this, but it needs to be this one, and to do that we need to in the middle we need to do this and that. What?
So is it basically that you have to already think in metaphors? Maybe it's a way to train that. So if I think of a story I want to tell, or I want to communicate like some certain information, I have to think of, okay, what does that mean? Like, is it a story from good to bad, or is it, I don't know, so that you think of basic forms and like the basic movement, so to say, you want to convey, and then you have to translate it already at the very beginning. Like, okay, this is like a opening box situation, or this is like a box to triangle situation, or this is like arrow to arrow to arrow and back situation, so that you kind of have this graphic alphabet in your head that you already try to apply at the very beginning. I think you can train that. That would be very interesting.
Yeah,
how to
that is an interesting line of thoughts. For example, the most simple ones, having the plus and minus, and then thinking into columns. Maybe that helps, or maybe just like having numbers, because I think the best numbers you can have from like 1, 2, 3, or even up to 5, but that's it. If you divide that into 3 parts, what does it become?
because you do it so naturally. I saw you do it many times, but yeah, it's true that it doesn't come naturally to every one of us. So it would be
and yeah, it can't. We are not alike.
Yeah, but it could be learned if you have like this, I don't know, basic translations like okay, this is a typical, we open the box thing, and then maybe we can learn to have at least like 3 to 4 different ways how to also graphically tell a story. We could choose maybe, okay, this may be better than the other one or something like that, like just very basic vocabulary.
Yeah, that's a good idea for a training session, like yeah, basic ideas, basic skills for visually challenged people.
So you have to show your tricks.
Yeah. I think starting from the simple tricks, that because that goes a long way. If you, I was thinking about having one presentation here, which was like I think the whole content was basically quite mediocre, but when I split it into 5 groups and I give them numbers and I presented it in that order, and I had a nice recap like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and everybody was really excited, like, oh, best presentation ever. But it wasn't. It was just numbers. Yeah, actually, somebody came to me after the presentation. How can you make something like that? It's so clean and simple. I said, use numbers. And when you present them in a way that you say, like, this is number 1, and you tell the story from that, and then there's number 2 and number 3, it makes sense. All of a sudden it feels really compact and holistic at the same time.
May I jump into that discussion? Referring back to and adding to what was your name, Friederike just said earlier, that it would be great to have something like a thought visual converter, some kind of logic system that allows us to read the semantics of language and verbal articulation and translate it into visual language and articulation forms. This is one thing. I mean, that would be perfect. You should build a startup around that and make it happen. And looking at what Mark just said, I think it would be super interesting to put these things together. Well, I've been thinking about that. I mean, everything that you've been talking about today is pretty much related to our ability to read maps.
Yeah.
You know, and there are these different kinds of maps, and each map has a certain purpose, and the way how maps are designed are meant to serve and cater that specific purpose. But and we all are capable of reading maps, I would say. If you go to the Arab world, for example, it becomes quite difficult because there we do have a cultural problem with pictures and reading maps. But if we would ask ourselves, or if you would give the exercise to the participants here in this group to draw a map from A to B, each map would look different, yet the content, or let's say the information that is provided, would be the same. And the way how we talk about what we see is, again, most probably something different. So having a visual information, having a verbal information is complementary in our topic that we discuss today. So presentations are meant to be very complemented by visual information and verbal information.
One other thing I think that's aligned with that was, I think it was touched upon today. So a lot of the focus was on the presentation and what the takeaways of the keynote of the presentation were, but there's got to be, whoever's presenting or giving the workshop or whatever type of presentation has to have a longer story or narrative behind almost the explanation of those slides. And and that's also a trick, and I may be wrong, so correct me, Miikka, if I am, or if I'm getting it wrong. But that way of making it concise and succinct in the way we tell that story is really vital. I have my mother's dead, my dad's alive, my stepmother's alive, and I was asked the question, how many times do you see them a year? Well, if I'm lucky, it's twice a year, but it's usually only once. And the other question is how old are they? And so you name their ages, they're up in age. So that means that I've got maybe 4 to 8 times left to see them before they die, which is a key figure that Miikka was just saying, putting the date of your death or whatever on the shirt, right? So if you say, okay, I got 8 times left to see them live before they die, how do you take that information and apply it to something in real time? So how do you make the data, the graph, the visuals into a story that says, oh shit, I better get out and do something. I better take action. I better go visit my family. I better, make that vital, whether it's business or personal or climate. That, for me anyway, that's something that's really pushes that into an action or into something compelling that people say, oh, I've never looked at it that way. Now I've got to act on it.
Yeah, I think there's nothing that translates into anything related to Keynote, but I think you would have a strong story for your presentation to have people think about their children, if they have any, and then think about, have they ever thought about having grandchildren if they don't have any, or the children of their grandchildren. Maybe play with the idea that giving them names, like what would be the ideal names, and would you like to be alive to see them, or blah blah blah, and all this, and then going back to the climate, saying that yes, these people won't have this, they won't have that, they don't have this, they will probably be living like this and that, like making really concrete dystopian up. I think time is up. We can still hang around here. I've got nowhere to go except home. If you somehow wanna give thumbs up to this kind of stuff, and me in social media would be highly appreciated. If not, that's okay too. And if you have somebody, if you want to join me next Wednesday, or if you have somebody who you know would love to be here, give them a call. This has been a pleasure doing this. Thank you for like fulfilling my dream doing this.
That was great. Thank you. Also the discussion, that was really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Really cool.
The most stylish webinar presenter I've ever seen.
Definitely.
Magician.
Do you go every day into the office like that, or was this just today?
Just today. I'm trying to experiment with the whole like these webinars, Zoom calls. They need to be more entertaining. I think
like a TV show. That's cool. You look like you're in a studio.
Yeah, that's why we have these lights here, and I've ordered, and I'm getting the same kind of lights at home, and I have a green screen at home and a good mic.
Honestly, I thought that your background right now was a green screen because it was like perfect.
Yeah.
Touch something really quick. I need to know if it's real.
But I have pictures of this background as well, so I can use it with the green screen. So you never know.
Cool.
Miikka, can I just ask, in terms of sharing on social media, do you have any snippets or something? I know you posted this event, but do you have anything more, I don't know, teaser-ish or something that would catch people's attention if we repost and write about it?
I can share something today. Maybe the key takeaway.
Something to intrigue and call to action. Yeah.
Yeah, I will. Thanks.
I have another question for you. This your whole ability that that I look up to you for is like all your graphics creations that you do with Keynote, and it kind of looks like it was like, you know, you used Illustrator, but in reality you did it with Keynote. Are you going to be going into that at all on next week, or is that something else?
Am I going to go to Illustrator or?
No. When you make your presentations, like the moonshot one or whatever it is, like, and you make them look like very professional, but you told me once you only use Keynote.
Yeah.
Is it going to be that kind of in detail for that kind of stuff, or is it going to be a different?
Yeah, it's
style?
Probably going to be that. I don't know yet.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm not good at selling this, but the
Keynote trainer, that's what we want. We want you to tell us what buttons to push, where to go to get the lines and to get the spaceships in there. How do we do that? That's what I was thinking we were going to get.
Yeah, I was a young information graphics artist at the big newspaper in Finland, Helsingin Sanomat. And I didn't know anything about that stuff, but still they hired me for some reason. But and I did some stuff, and my boss at the time asked me over to give some feedback. And the stuff that he said, I've done some sports graphics, and he said that do you know that in the Western world, normally in graphics, time goes from left to right, not from right to left. Okay, make a note. So, but I understand, like for young me, I didn't know that time goes from left to right, and up is always better than down. I didn't know that. But those are like super easy things to do. But I don't know what's the right level for this kind of training. Of course, in an hour, how much can you do? You can send me some questions or things that you would like to learn.
That was really deep, Miikka, about up and down and left and right. I think I'm going to quote you like that Al Gore picture on my next presentation.
Yeah. But yeah.
Are you sure you haven't opened the gimlets or the beer yet? I mean.
No, I'm just looking at the.
All right, it's not cocktail time yet.
It is. It's always cocktail time.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
Really nice.
So
bye, everyone.
Okay, let's go do something else.
I have to go.
Miikka.
It was a pleasure. Thanks.
Miikka.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Nice to meet you.